How would you describe your relationship with money in one word?
I would say haphazard.
Have you chased the money or chased the passion?
Money. I am a spender. Like sometimes if I get a quote for a holiday, I don't really show him everything. Like, it's really cheap, darling, it'll be fine. Being a bit smarter with money. I don't think I've been very smart with money. You know, we're not taught any of this at school.
So you feel generally lucky with money?
A little bit. I think I've winged it a little bit. I was very English. I mean, you just don't talk about money very much. When I was 17, my dad walked out. And then, of course, my mum had no money. Mum, you know, she probably didn't know how much money was in the bank. I mean, she just didn't. If I had my time again, would I choose what we've done? Maybe not. I am saying to my sons, follow your passion. You don't need 90% of the stuff you have.
What's your biggest money regret?
I think it is...
Cate, thanks so much for being here on the podcast.
My pleasure.
As you know, I've given everyone a list of things to introduce themselves with. Can you just run through your list, please?
Of course. So my name is Cate Skeat. I am 56 years old. I live in Winchester. I have a house which still has a mortgage. I work as a relationship manager in the telco industry. And my salary, I think, is good, but the bailiffs aren't knocking on the door. But it's difficult, right? How do you measure it? I think my salary gives me the lifestyle that I enjoy. Yes, I've got dependents. Well, actually, I've only got one now. So I've got an 18, nearly 19-year-old son. So he's officially an adult. And then a 17-year-old son. So 2 boys. And that's me.
Nice to say one dependent now.
Yes, I know. Although it doesn't feel like it. It still feels like 2, to be fair, because he's still at home.
So, Cate, it's the big question to start with. How would you describe your relationship with money in one word?
One word is difficult, but I think I would say haphazard.
Haphazard. Wow. Okay. How do you expand on that?
I think my financial situation, as I sit here as a 56-year-old, it is more by luck than judgment. I don't think I've really planned it. It's worked okay for me. And the industry I've been in for most of my career is a sales role. And so my income is quite haphazard. So, you know, I work on a basic plus commission. And so I've had years where I've earned double what I earned the year before. And then the following year, I go back to earning half of that again. So I would say haphazard because it's been quite squiggly. And there's been moments where I've, you know, had to dig into that overdraft. I've had credit card debt, and then I've had times when I'm like, oh, what shall I do with all this money? Not many times like that, but occasionally where I've, you know, earned a lot more than the previous year. And so, yeah, I think probably quite haphazard.
So those squeaky bum time moments, the way you got through those, is that credit cards, overdrafts? Is that the kind of route you've generally taken? Is that the main sort of point of call for you?
So a bit of everything along the way. So credit card early on. So I went to university, or Bristol Polytechnic as it was called back in the day, UE, with debt, and that became a credit card debt. And so my early 20s, and I moved straight to London when I graduated, not a cheap place to live. So yeah, my early 20s, there were times when I would open that envelope and pay a silly amount of money, you know, maybe over £100 in interest. And that's really depressing. And I never wanted to go back to that. So since when that got paid off, I've never had credit card debt since. I have 2 credit cards, an Amex and a Visa, because not everywhere takes American Express. And they both come out in full from my account every month. So I was very much burnt by credit card debt, and I've not done it again. And I wouldn't ever do that again.
And how many years of credit card pain was that for you then?
It was probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Felt a long stretch.
Hence the burn then, in terms of...
It's the burn. So learnt, thankfully at a relatively young age, that wasn't a route I wanted to go down again. So I think I probably should give myself credit. I'm relatively careful with money. I don't overspend. I think I do a bit of juggling. So there have been times where, you know, I know that money's coming, but I haven't got it that month. So I think I had, I mean, not huge amounts, but I've always had a bit of overdraft on my NatWest current bank account, and I have dipped into that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's interesting, obviously, as you said, you've been burnt by credit cards, and so you don't want to go back, but you do currently use them.
Yeah, I do.
And there's obviously ways you can use them that are safe or, or appropriate. What sort of made you go, okay, I will start using them again, if that makes sense?
Because I think, so there's two things, right? There's debt, which is not a nice place to be, but there's also making your money work for you. And I actually worked for American Express for about 15 years at one point, and I got their cashback credit card. So actually I put everything, my Sainsbury's shop, anything I can put on credit card I do, and both of my credit cards are cashback. Now, lots of people do Avios or they do different loyalty schemes. I've always been a little bit skeptical about loyalty schemes just because there always seems to be limitations to, you can fly on Friday if you're wearing a pink shirt, and then you can use some of your Avios. So I've gone for the cash option. So I think having been burnt by bad credit card usage, actually, for me, for cash flow and just getting that cash back once a year is quite nice for doing my normal spending.
Would you say you were good with money?
No. I'd love to say yes. I mean, I don't think it's a bit like, is your salary good? The point of this podcast, right, is people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
I know your wife's an accountant. My very closest friend who I've known since uni days is an accountant, and she has a very different approach to money. So she's very careful. She is all about look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. She will not spend frivolously in pret-a-manger or, on little treats on a daily basis. She's like, take your own lunch, and you don't buy coffee in Costa. And
yeah.
There are other coffee places and other sandwich places, just to be clear. And she budgets. So do I do any of those things? No. If I want a nice cup of coffee, I'll buy myself a nice cup of coffee. Do I budget? Not really.
I never have.
No, I don't think I have. I mean, I've been in a position where at the end of the month I haven't got any money left and I'm eating jacket potatoes every night.
Yeah.
I've been there for sure, because I've realised there's not much money in the bank and I need to rein it in. But I've never really, I don't think I'm that controlling.
Do you think it sort of goes back to the haphazard salary, so that that it kind of ebbs and flows anyway, so your spending can ebb and flow anyway?
So I sort of reflect, my outgoings reflect my incomings,
yes,
if you like. And I've always got an eye on it, right? I'm not completely stupid. And if I think about the last 30 years, I've not got into debt of any description. I've always paid the mortgage, I've always paid car loans. I have an overdraft limit that I've dipped into, but I've never gone over it. So maybe I am quite good with money. And I have a job that enables me to earn enough to have the kind of lifestyle I want.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm particularly good. I don't think I'm very organised with it. And actually, a couple of things have happened recently that I feel are very much more by luck than judgment. So I paid into my children's child trust fund every month, and it paid my son $5,000 last year when he turned 18. And it was 12 quid a month for me for 18 years. So I didn't really feel that outgoing.
Yeah.
And then I did like a mortgage ISA, which I paid £200 into every month for 25 years. And that came to fruition recently. So in some ways, I've made some quite good investments, but I'm not quite sure.
But they must have been judgment, right? To go, I'm going to do this. It doesn't happen. Someone doesn't take your money from you and put it in this place. You've made that choice.
100%. So then you think, well, maybe I am subliminally quite good with money.
You're not giving yourself credit.
No, maybe not. But I don't feel like I've massively planned and controlled it.
Yeah. So you feel generally lucky with money, and I guess with life as a result over the years.
A little bit. I think I've winged it a little bit, but it's been okay. But then there are the principles. I've had principles that I do not want to get into credit card debt again. That if I want to spend X, I need to earn X. I've always worked. I went back when my kids were 6 months old to work. So, yeah, I think I don't feel like I've massively planned for it, but in some ways I've planned not to get into trouble.
This is interesting because you said you keep an eye on it. You always keep an eye on it, and you're checking your figures. And something I ask everyone is sort of how often do you look at your banking app or your bank account? Has that changed for you over the years? Because for me, at the start of life, really, of using money and having money, it was do not look at the bank account almost at any cost.
Yeah.
Now it's check every day. Where are you at, or where have you sort of gone on that journey?
Well, bearing in mind my age, back in the day, you just got paper statements. There were no banking apps. So I think...
But would you be looking at them, or would you go, oh...
I think I
junk mail?
probably got a few from the 90s that didn't get opened.
Yeah.
Would have gone straight into the shredder, head in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Or, when the cash point says, would you like to see your balance? Absolutely not. I've definitely had times when I've gone to the cash point and it won't give me money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, again,
Scary.
I'm talking 30 odd years ago, but not a nice feeling. Then I think when, you grow up a bit and have kids and become like a little bit more responsible, I think I kept a closer eye on it. Now I've obviously got a banking app, which is genius. I mean, for an old lady, it's like, oh, God, these banking apps are brilliant. I can even pay checks in with them. Who does checks? But I do get checks, actually, from my dad. I look at it probably twice a week.
Right, okay.
So not all the time, but I like to keep an eye on it. And I also check my credit cards.
Yeah.
So I've got an Amex app and I go onto my Visa. So probably credit cards every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Current account, probably twice a week. Depending, if I'm expecting something to be paid in or want to see if I've been paid. And I do keep an eye for fraud because, that's a thing.
And so is that principle, do you think, is enough for anyone of is that a principle of check it every twice a week or check back credit cards every couple of weeks? Do you think that's a solid kind of baseline to avoid getting into trouble?
I think so. I mean, it's very individual. I do think money is such a personal... I think the biggest thing is to have self-awareness of what kind of spender are you. And some people maybe need to look at it once a day. But then it's that tipping point, isn't it? Do you become obsessed with it? And I guess it depends how you're paid. I mean, if you're paid weekly, you probably want to check it more often.
Yeah.
I'm paid monthly. So, and I have a lot of standing orders and direct debits. So I kind of know it's quite consistent. And because I put most of my ad hoc spending on credit cards, my bank account is pretty much, it comes in at the end of the month as a salary. And all of my different standing orders. I have a joint account with my husband, which we both pay into, and then that pays the mortgage and council tax and boring things like that. So I think for me, it's right. I'm not sure there is a general what's right and what's wrong. If you're freelance and self-employed, you probably maybe check it daily.
Yeah.
If people are owing you money on a rolling basis. So I think it's really personal. But I think the key is don't be in denial.
No, well, that makes me feel better as a freelancer. So I'm not
Do you look
paranoid.
every day?
I'm looking every day. Maybe that's why.
That's different, right? If I looked every day, I wouldn't see anything new.
No, yeah, I suppose that's it.
Because I'm paid once a month, PAYE. It's all very static and traditional. But I'd be completely different if I ran my own business and knew that people owed me or I owed people, and that's very much more fluid.
Yes.
And the joy is you can check your app every day. It's a 5-second job.
Yeah, that's the dream of it, right? That's the beauty.
Perfect.
You mentioned your dad sends you checks, which is already a funny story in itself.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Okay. Really showing my age here.
Have you sort of growing up and stuff, did you have a good sort of money relationship with your parents? Would you talk about it much at all, ever, all the time?
I think I had a weird situation because... my family's slightly bonkers anyway. So my mum and my dad, I was the only child for my parents, but my mum had twins from a previous marriage. So I grew up with brother and sister 10 years older than me. So when I was 8, they both left home. My dad was very traditional. So he graduated from university with classics, went into the army, left the army, joined IBM and stayed at IBM as a middle manager for about 30 years. So dad was the very traditional breadwinner, went out to work to Croydon every day, came back. Mum didn't really work, but she dabbled in stuff. She used to do accounts actually for friends and people. And then she joined the Citizens Advice Bureau as a volunteer, which did turn into a paid job because she became deputy manager, but it was the pocket money. Yeah. It was very clear what mum earned was the little bit extra. So interestingly, my parents, dad was definitely the earner and a saver.
You were aware of that?
Very much so.
And how did that manifest itself? What does that... Because as a child, I mean, for me personally, I was very much detached from the parents' money, what was going on. But what did you see or hear or learn or to talk about that made you go, oh, well, he's obviously saving lots of money?
I think just Dad was going out to work, so we knew he was earning the money. And if we had conversations around the dinner table, you know, Mum was one going, oh, come on, let's go on holiday. And Mum would use her money to do the fun stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So it was sort of, the view was Dad was very solid and paid the bills, and, you know, we had a nice house and car and everything. Whereas Mum's was the fun pocket money that would maybe take me shopping to buy some clothes. Or,
nice.
I don't think she sort of ever said, oh, don't tell Dad. But that was the sense.
Yeah.
And then when I was 17, my dad walked out. And it was all a bit nasty, and it was a very unpleasant split. And then, of course, my mum had no money. So I think... And it was just a difficult time for her. Obviously, we had to sell the family home, and she had to buy a much smaller house. And bless her, she lived on very little money. I remember her telling me it was $15,000 a year she lived on, which is basically money that Dad, I guess, out of the divorce settlement, she'd have got something. But bearing in mind, I was about to turn 18. She didn't get money for me. And then she obviously got a pension, and she carried on working at the Citizens Advice Bureau until she could. But I think that made me maybe subconsciously think I'm never getting into that situation where so interestingly, in my marriage, I'm the breadwinner.
Yeah, interesting how that's happened.
Yeah.
And so with work then, have you chased the money or chased the passion?
Money. I really have. And not necessarily purposefully.
Right.
I left university with a degree in French and Spanish.
Nice.
And a very average 2-2.
Famously a high earning.
Yeah, right. What do you do with French and Spanish? And I remember it was, again, back in the 90s when it's like, oh, yeah, you know, we're part of Europe. Everybody wants languages. And they don't in the workplace, unless you're an interpreter in Brussels.
Yeah.
So I then went to work for a publishing company selling advertising space. So my purely because they took graduates and I had happened to apply through uni.
Yeah.
So I just got into sales. And I remember my first job was selling for What Car magazine. So my daily task, I'd have a piece of paper and a phone on a wire, smoking at my desk.
Lovely.
Just like to add.
Yeah.
Don't smoke, kids. Especially not a ridiculous waste of money. To car salesman. And it was awful.
Oh, wow.
And then I worked out that Haymarket Publishing, who I worked for, produced a magazine called Wine. And I was approached my boss saying, I'd quite like to work for Wine magazine, not least because I can speak to vineyards in France and Spain. So I did at least make use of my languages. So that's what I did. And I did...
That's quite sort of entrepreneurial of you, isn't it?
Exactly. And I sort of look back, and at 23, I was driving around Rioja on my own, going to vineyards to sell advertising space in our upcoming Spanish wine article. And then I went to California and we drove the Napa Valley. It was
amazing.
A cool job. You know, when you look back and think, why did I? And I tell you what, and this is going off piste a bit, but you asked about passion and purpose and money. I was offered a job. I had a choice when I was about 24, 25. One was to go and work with a friend of mine who'd said, come and work for this marketing agency. And the other was to organise the International Wine Challenge, which was an annual competition. And I went down the marketing route, and if I had a regret job-wise, it was I should have taken the organising the International Wine Challenge job, because I think if I had my time again, I'd love to get into events.
Yeah.
And
still
that
time.
Could have, yeah, maybe. There's lots of things on that. That's a whole nother podcast. But no, I have this discussion with my teenage kids. You know, I've earned good money. I think, going back to one of your first questions, I think I've earned well. For my ability and my qualifications, I think I've done quite well financially, but I am definitely not passionate about telecom.
Yes.
At all.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I have to say I'm probably having a slight midlife crisis about how did I get here?
Yeah.
And I am still working full time in that industry, which is a tough industry. I'm sure if you've ever spoken to a mobile phone provider, you know how telcos operate. So yeah, I've chased the money.
And what's that conversation you have with your children now?
Have a think about what you want, you know, because there is this whole, do you go to university? Do they come out with £50,000 debt? You know, my son's just finished his A-levels, so he's not wanting to go to university at the moment. my sort of view is if you want to be a bin man, be a bin man. And I'm not, or whatever you want to do that doesn't pay brilliantly, or if you want to go and earn big bucks doing stocks and shares in London, but think about your sense of purpose and think about the lifestyle you want, because you're not going to be able to afford to buy a property in Winchester if that's something you want, if you earn a lower salary.
So you're sat on the sofa, the boys are there, you're having this conversation with them. Your partner's in the chair on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
What contribution does he make? Is he contributing in the same sort of argument, really? Or is he a bit different? What's his kind of viewpoint?
I think we come from the same place, but Chris also did a degree in media. And again, it goes back to the same thing. He had a job where he was an editor or editorial assistant on the Richmond and Twickenham Times, which was a local newspaper where he lived in southwest London, and he loved it. He interviewed Richard E. Grant, he interviewed, loads of sports people. Amazing job, but it paid peanuts.
Right.
I mean, literally peanuts. When I met him, he got a job at the BBC and he worked as a sub-editor for the Radio Times. And the reason we got to where we are today is when we had our kids and we decided to move out of London back to Hampshire, the BBC wouldn't let him work from home, paid not very much. The next step, which was like deputy editor, was just, I don't know, another grand a year and loads more work and long hours. I worked for American Express, who were very happy for me to work from home, paid quite well. And so that was the tipping point for us a little bit, whereby we said, okay, you be a house husband and be there for the boys when they have to go to school and be picked up at 3:00, which, as we all know, doesn't work with any kind of corporate job. And I'll stick with American Express. And that's the route we've taken. So I think he'd feel similarly. I don't know if he has regrets. It's probably a question to ask when I go home.
I should speak to him.
Yeah. So I don't think we would argue. We don't argue very much about money, actually.
That's interesting.
We don't really. And I might sometimes feel a bit resentful because I'm now, still working full time and he isn't. But he does a ton of stuff at home. I mean, he does all the cooking.
Yeah.
And when the boy, and then he went into teaching, because when the kids do go to school, no job works, frankly. Yes. So you either pay somebody a lot of money, you have lovely family members, or he worked in a school because it meant he had the holidays off. And
so have you always talked about money sort of as a couple? As you say, if you lived in London, I guess you don't really have a choice. You have to,
because you have no money and everything's... I mean, literally it was that, right? We had a 2-bedroom flat. Yeah. We had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the thing with London is a lot of your friends are very wealthy. Yeah. And live in £1 million or 2 million now, probably pound houses. We were in Wimbledon. The state school isn't, it's a bit, they say pay or pray. Right. So you've either got a church school and you become best friends with the local vicar, or you pay for private. There's not really. So yeah, we've, from that point in time, we're like, well, what do we want out of life? We can get a 3-bedroom house in Hampshire. And we looked around the country at different areas. And so, yeah, I think we're quite good at talking about money. And it's not always pleasant. And I am a spender. Yeah. I do earn good money, but I like to spend it. And Chris is a saver. Like sometimes if I get a quote for a holiday, I don't really show him everything. Like, it's really cheap, darling. It'll be fine. But yeah, I think we do talk a lot about it. Again, I think it's that. If I had any tip about money is talk and be aware. Don't be in denial, because it's not going to go away.
And the stats are pretty stark. I think it's 1 in 5 couples break up over financial problems or worries or arguments. So maybe that's sort of testament to you guys.
Well, I think it's having self-awareness and every couple I know, it's different, right? And I think actually the younger generation, your generation and beyond, are much more equal. I think, if I look at my mum and dad, where mum, she probably didn't know how much money was in the bank. I mean, she just didn't. She didn't need to. That wasn't how they operated as a couple, which was all right for 17 years, but not great when he decided to walk out. And I think there will be, the earners that don't want to break up a relationship because they don't want to give away half their pension or half the house, and there will be the other partner who can't leave because they can't afford to leave. So I think I think in a relationship, anything is fine. It's a bit like parenting. Co-sleep if you want. It's nobody's business. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of people that will give you their advice and their views. But I think as long as you're all right with it as a couple, that perhaps the woman earns more than the man, or perhaps the man does the kiddie bits while the woman... And I think it's also knowing you can't always control it. You know, if I had my time again, would I choose what we've done? Maybe not. But at the time, his employer was hopeless and paid really badly. And we had a point. It's when I got very ill, actually, and ended up in hospital, where he was going up to London every day because of BBC. Everything he did was online, but they wouldn't let him work from home.
Madness.
You know, this is going back to like 2007, 2008. But
they saw the pandemic coming. It would all be so
clearly. So, you know, it's not always what you both want as a couple. There has to be the reality of, hang on, how much do you earn? How much do I earn? What do we need? We've got 2 kids. We're not in a luxurious position to say it doesn't matter what we earn. So yeah, I think just be aware, keep talking, and ebb and flow. And I think we're at a bit of a point now where we're like, okay, the kids don't need us anymore, really, unless they need a lift somewhere. But Liam drives now, so that's irrelevant. You know, and I want to back off a bit from full-time work.
But you've had the conversations up till now. You can have that conversation now.
And we still talk about it.
Yeah.
We still talk about it. And sometimes it's a bit tense. You know, it's not all roses. But I think if you keep communicating and listening, then you'll kind of get through it.
And do you think that sort of generational gap is really there? You obviously talked about sort of your parents, and there was quite a clear traditional breadwinner.
Yeah.
And wife didn't work.
Yeah.
You come under Gen X, which I think
do I?
is an interesting generation. I saw a LinkedIn post about this, about how you sort of, like you say, you remember working at a desk without a computer.
Yeah.
But equally, you know how to use Slack,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you've had to sort of adapt to all these changes over the years.
Yeah.
When you talk to your friends about money, how does that go? I mean, do you talk to your friends about money?
Not really.
Is it just completely a non-starter conversation-wise?
It's not that we don't talk about it. I mean, my very closest friend is an accountant, so we do talk. I probably talk to her more than anyone. Even
she loves it.
Potentially more than Chris. She so does.
Yeah.
She's a spreadsheet queen. She's the one that says, "Do you budget, Kate?" And I'm, not really, so you know. Really must think about that. But so we do talk a lot about money. She knows exactly what I earn. She knows what I've got in my bank account. She'll give me advice because she's smarter than I am with money, and vice versa. If I take my sort of, you know, mum friends in Winchester as an example, we do talk about money to a certain extent. Would I talk to any of them if I was in debt? I'm not sure.
Why is that? What's the roadblock there?
Well, thankfully I'm not, so it's not a situation. But if I think back of when I have known that I'm struggling with money, I mean, to be fair, a couple of years ago, I had a really bad year when I wasn't earning any commission, funnily enough, at Slack. And we really cut back. We didn't have a holiday that year. We had 2 nights, I think, in Cornwall, and that was that. And we really had to pull back on our spending. And I do live in quite a wealthy area, and a lot of my friends, are like doctors, and you know, they've got good money, or they run their own businesses. And we probably have, I mean, my boys have come back from play dates going, why have we got the smallest house of all our friends? Why wouldn't I talk to them? I don't know.
Is it their perception of you?
Think.
Yeah.
You know, it's shameful, right? And it's a weird thing that there's a bit of a badge, I think, with money.
When it's basically out of your control in a lot of scenarios, right?
A little bit. I mean, there is some... And I guess that's it, isn't it? It would be seen as very negative if you've lost control of your finances, but that isn't always a controllable, particularly in the current economic environment where, you know, I've been made redundant twice in my career and I very quickly got another job, but that didn't happen without me making sure I got another job.
Yeah, very true.
So yeah, I think it's that there are outside influences, or you can be lucky and inherit. And that, again, isn't anything you've controlled or done. So there's always a bit of both, a bit of the outside influence and a bit of your own behaviours, I think, which will drive that success. But yeah, we're very English. I mean, you just don't talk about money very much, do you?
That's the British thing. We need to change, probably.
Yeah, I think we do.
What's your biggest money regret?
I think it is... Well, I spent a lot. I do think back when there was a time when I lived in London when I was single and I ate out, I could eat out 3-4 times a week. Yeah, if I sort of think back, but I don't, that would be wrong to say I regret that because I had a ball and I don't regret it. And I worked hard to do it. I had a great time. I think perhaps it's a bit like gambling with money. It's like, how much do you spend? How much do you save? How much do you invest? How long are you going to live? When do you want to stop working? And I'm certainly at that point at 56. It's like, I remember in my 30s, financial advisors telling me, I can't remember what the percentage was, 20% of your income should go into your pension. And I just laughed. It was just like, no way. That's like 400 quid a month and I need that money to pay my rent and to eat and go out 4 times a week.
Very idealistic, isn't it?
Very idealistic. However, I think, and again, I learned this from my accountant friend, what I wish I'd probably tried to understand more is things like tax benefits. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not always net that you're worse off because there are a lot of tax benefits to doing certain things with your money. And I think perhaps if I'd listened a bit more and been a bit more curious, I think I was sort of told to do something, didn't like the idea of that, so I didn't do it. So I think perhaps more curiosity, not necessarily, there's the black and white, what do I earn, what do I spend? But I think making money work for you and understanding, like I said, these small amounts I pay and pay 12 quid a month for 18 years and suddenly I've got 5 grand out of that.
Better than Disney Plus, right?
Better than Disney Plus. Do you need exactly? And it's more that being a bit smarter with money. I don't think I've been very smart with money. And there's a couple of things that I think have gone quite well. Like I've got a decent pension because I've always worked for a corporate.
Right.
And they always pay into a pension. I put some of my redundancy into my pension because Sue explained, that was tax efficient. So I think you've mentioned it in some of your intros. We're not taught any of this at school. And then you might get a financial advisor, and I'm talking back in the 90s. It was like, oh, you should do this and you should put your money in that because they were probably going to earn commission on it. I think if I was your age now, I'd say get yourself a financial advisor. Well, you've got a wife, but, somebody who really understands how to make your money work. Because I think it's not always that you're taking it and not seeing it until you're 65. That was how I viewed that. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I might not be here and I'm having fun and I live in London and I don't want to give up this money that I actually haven't got. I didn't have 400 quid spare a month. Yeah. But I think I would have perhaps just been a bit more curious about how can I make the money work for me without necessarily just kind of paying it to a pension.
And the opposite then, best investment that you've made?
Well, property is an interesting one because people always talk about property. Well, certainly my pet, it's get on the property ladder. Property's been really interesting for me. So again, haphazard. Yeah. So the first property I bought was a 1-bedroom flat in Ealing in West London. I bought it for 120 and sold it for 170. So that was a really good financial investment. We then bought a flat in Wimbledon, which was a horrific financial investment and definitely didn't make us any money. In fact, I think we probably lost money on it. Really?
How's that work then?
Well, I think some of it was the economic. We bought at quite a high price. Right. And when we went to sell, it was a crash. It was in late 2010. And everything went pear-shaped. It was a bit like it is at the moment. And it just took ages to sell. The guy that owned the lease on it had done extensions that were a bit dodgy. So people would put an offer in, then they'd get a survey, and then they pulled out. That happened for about 3 years. That was quite a depressing time. So that wasn't great. But then Winchester, I think we've done well. When we bought, and then Winchester's gone crazy. And that, again, is more by luck. We moved to Winchester because good schools and we liked it. And it was quite near family. So I think property is an interesting one. I'm not saying that's necessarily my best investment because it's also been one of my worst. I think probably one of the smartest things I did was this weird ISA that I didn't really understand.
Okay.
Terrifying, isn't it? When I bought my first flat in 2000, it was a 25-year ISA that I paid £200 a month into. And there have been times when I've nearly stopped it because, you have it was aimed to pull back. I think 115 was the top to pay back. So it's always going to pay back between like 85 and 115. And there were times when it was dire, and particularly in COVID. And I've stuck with it. And I think that would be perhaps another piece of advice. If you do investments, don't panic about them. And that's paid out 100 grand for me, 111, I think it was.
Lovely stuff.
Talking more numbers than is relevant, but it was a good investment, and it's tax efficient because it's an ISA.
And again, for you, a happy accident.
and to be honest,
yeah,
very haphazard that it actually worked.
Great work.
Yeah, but I think anything that you can pay a little bit into with a future in mind is worth considering.
Another deep question for you then. If you could have one conversation with someone else, a money conversation that would improve your life the most, who would it be with, and what would that conversation be?
Right now, to improve the rest of my life, not looking back.
Or looking back, if that's what comes to mind.
Yeah. Gosh, one person. I probably would have... I mean, I talk about my friend a lot, but I trust her. She's very smart with money. I probably would go back to my 30s and listen to her more.
Okay, right.
About budgeting and making money work for me. And I can't really think of anyone else in my personal life that I would turn to. And she's who I'm talking to now about the next chapter of my life, you know, and retirement and maybe going part-time. And yeah, I don't know.
So you'd have that conversation with yourself back then, to say, listen to your friend.
Yeah, like maybe I would go back to my late 20s, early 30s and have more conversations with a more variety of people to get thought, or maybe talk at that point to 60-year-olds to say, you know, what is it you've done to enable you to go part-time, to maybe follow your passion, not the money. Because that's what I want to do now. You know, it's like I've done my time. We've brought our kids up in a lovely area. They've had a great education. Now this is about me. And I've always wanted to go into counselling. So now I want to try and shrink my corporate earnings and train to become a counsellor. That's my dream. And again, I'm talking with this friend to figure that out. And she's got quite a sensible, because I sort of think, I spend this, therefore I must earn that. She's going 3 days a week and she's going to make that work. So she's almost like, follow your passion and whatever income that gives you, make that work for your life. That might be downsizing, that might be moving area, that might be cutting back on your fancy cars, whatever that looks like. Whereas I think, well, I've got all these things, therefore my outgoings are X, therefore I need to earn Y.
I see,
and
yeah.
I think I'm
not thinking about the other way.
shifting that mindset a little bit to go, well, hey, if I earned that, how could we make that work? Could we make that work to begin with? Because I definitely don't want to go into debt. So yeah, I think I would have had a deeper, more curious conversation in my 30s. And I think in my late 50s, I'm learning more. I think money is quite complicated, actually. I've always been quite linear on it. I get my salary and this is my incoming and this is my outgoing. And I think I haven't been curious about how you can make money work for you.
Curiosity saved the cat.
Maybe. Who knows? Maybe if I'd been too curious, I wouldn't have this haphazard luck.
Well, yeah, that's it, yeah.
So who knows?
I feel like we've had a load of life lessons from you that's sort of spilled out as almost advice for people.
Sorry, it's not an advice
No, that's
podcast,
fine.
I know that.
It's not an advice podcast, but this is the beauty of conversations, right, and opening it up. I am going to ask you for advice now.
Okay.
But I want you to sort of boil it down to one single golden piece of advice that you would give to someone now that would improve their relationship with money better than anything else.
So I think it's like any relationship, it's personal. I think that's the point. There's no piece of advice that's going to make you and all your listeners, you know, more comfortable with money or anything. I think it's very personal. I'm giving advice to my teenagers. So if I think about that age group, I am saying to my sons, follow your passion.
Right.
You can, right? You have a roof over your heads. They're not a big drain. They both work, my kids, you know, and it's important. And we talk about money. I talk about money with them. You know, Liam's like, I don't like my account going under £1,000. And we laugh. I compare it to exercise. Like, you know, it will take you 5 seconds to eat a 200-calorie biscuit. It will probably take you an hour to work it off. Money's a bit like that. Yeah. It's a lot quicker to spend it than it is to earn it, unfortunately. So I think to anyone younger and to my younger self, I would have said, just calm down. Don't rush into the corporate world. that's the age, right? That's the age to follow your passion, because you've hopefully got parents or some sort of solid home life that will allow you to not have to follow the money yet. Now, the money might follow if you follow your passion, because you're likely to love your work and be really good at it. So I think that would be my nugget to young people who have the privilege, if you like, of not having to earn yet. I think in your sort of late 20s, early 30s, as perhaps you're starting relationship and family and mortgages, is just be really self-aware and talk. If you're in a relationship and that money becomes a joint pot, just don't hide things, don't be in denial, because it will come back to haunt you, and it might break your relationship, which would be sad. So I think at that age, be really honest about you as how do you do money, and be aware of that, and get some advice from lots of different people you trust, on how to save for the future. Because in an ideal world, you want to give your kid or kids, a lovely life, and you want to probably not be working at 60 full on. So that would be my advice at that time in life. But I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid of money. Be curious. But it's hard. It's hard to earn good money. It's not easy. And it's hard to rein in your spending sometimes. So I think you've just got to, like any emotion, any relationship, just be as aware as you can about it. Constantly talk about it, whether it's with yourself whilst you're looking at your app, or with your partner, or learn from others. Ask others. Let's talk more. I tell you what, the other piece of advice I would give is do not spend money on things.
Interesting.
Obviously, you need things to exist, but if I had that advice to myself, I've got a house full of rubbish, and without being maudlin, if I died tomorrow, somebody's got to sort all that rubbish out. You don't need 90% of the stuff you have. Memories. Do things. I mean, most of my friends now, we don't buy each other presents. I don't need anything, John. But take me out for a spa day, or let's go for a lovely walk in the hills and take a picnic.
Perfect.
You don't actually have to spend a lot of money to have a really nice time, and memories cost nothing.
That's a great, lovely end to the podcast. Cate, thanks so much for being involved.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.